Welcome back. Welcome back from tea. Hope you've enjoyed the break. We're now going to welcome Marius Atterbury. Marius is the new CEO of the Fire Protection Association of South Africa since January this year. 1st of January. So let's welcome Marius. Marius is going to take us through emergency preparedness. Thanks, Marius. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Peter. Thanks, everybody, for being here. I was kind of shanghaied into doing something, presenting. So we decided that, oh, you could have told me just to, all right, there we go. We decided to put a little something that might on the face of it, if you follow the theme of the day, we've been hearing lithium and all kinds of things, and the insulation part. Thank you for that, Des. And you'll follow that theme, and now this one looks a little bit out of sorts. But let me quickly tell you, I am going to bore you with all the slides that I had prepared. I didn't do that for nothing. But here's a big takeaway that I want you to think about. I'm going to be pushing quite hard for emergency preparedness to take a higher profile in the mindset of regulators. We typically don't have a single piece of legislation that makes it clear that every place must have an emergency preparedness plan. We got bits and pieces all over the place popping up. If you want to have a hotel, you must have a sign somewhere that shows the people that stay there. Bits and pieces. But there's no single concise piece of legislation that says every workplace must have an emergency preparedness plan, which I then couple with every workplace must have a fire risk plan or a fire safety plan. And the connection into the rest of the theme for today, for me, is if we can get the people to have that, we will take that awareness of the different life safety installations, property protection installations, detection, which brings early detection, response equipment, which brings early response. We'll bring that into the understanding of every person that is out there in the workplaces. Right now, I spent quite a bit of time together with Peter, nearly 12 years we worked together. We go throughout the workplace. People know about the extinguisher. And you say, okay, this little red box here that you can, do you know? No, we don't. And that's your call point, your alarm call point. We know that, but the general purpose in an office, in a factory, don't know what that does. So if we elevate the importance of emergency preparedness, coupled with the importance of fire safety plans for the workplace, I believe that very, very quickly we'll get people to be more aware, have the alarms happen quicker, respond quicker, and in all instances, that must mean less loss of life, less loss of property. So I promised you I've got a couple of boring slides to have a look at. I've talked about legislation. Interestingly, the Disaster Management Act has the word emergency preparedness in it. But unfortunately, it is written under the heading of for disasters. And typically, we've got our esteemed colleagues from the Western Cape here as well. Good to see you guys. George building falls down. Watch the space. It's not going to be a disaster. So I can't invoke that if that building had been completed before it fell down, that it must have an emergency plan. So some beautiful elements in that talks about what an emergency plan is supposed to do. I'm not going to read through that. You'll get the slides. By the way, very sneakily, we are busy live streaming this whole conference on YouTube. If you have not subscribed to one of our new social media sites, please go and do that. And soon on that YouTube channel, you'll be able to go and watch the individual presentations. It's a kind of a new thing that we tried. I didn't advertise it. If it didn't work very well, then we would have saved face today. So go and have a look at that. So we're trying to have a look at that. The major hazard installation regulations are very clear. And then you have some local bylaws. At one point in time, the Schools Act said very clearly every school must have an emergency preparedness plan. I struggled to find that when I did this preparation, whether it still exists, whether it is still a requirement. Just a little bit of the background of that. Then I had a look at, so if we do move into this arena, people would say, what do I put in it? Emergency plans, when I grew up, we had an organization called Civil Defense. Typically that was run by the Army, because when I grew up, we were all afraid that the terrorists are going to blow up the whole world and take over. So Civil Defense was activated at that time as school kids. I'm not 80 yet, I'm hoping to go past that. But as school kids, we had to do drills and hide under the desk and do things like that. And that was driven by Civil Defense. In our metamorphosis, I used to use the word evolution, Peter. I recently decided I will talk about metamorphosis, because we change from the one being to the next being as our world changes. In our metamorphosis from civil defense into disaster management, it's as if that one element, how do we drive the society to be ready for emergencies? Civil defense did first aid training and emergency preparedness drills in all public places. It was driven by somebody. Disaster management evolution has taken on a very, very important role, but it seems as if we've left a little bit of a gap. So we want to think about that. So I had a look at that. If we move forward, here's from the World Health Organization perspective what an emergency preparedness program should represent. Evaluation and correction, assessing the risk, planning. Oh, I should have started with assessing. But here's the story. If you read those, it's a circle. I might have a very rubbish EP plan at work, then I do start with that evaluation. Or I might have nothing, then I first have to get a couple of people together so that we can do that, and then I start there in the middle of the circle. But as I put something in place, whether it is small, whether it is good, whether it is rubbish, I will be in this circle forever because I want to be ready. And if we think about this in a nice logical way, it can work at Fortune 500 companies and it can work in the rural outbacks because the concept is there. And I remember one year, and I've tried to find that as a YouTube video or something, but on TV I caught a little hurricane Domania or one of those, one of the FEMA responders, he made a statement, said, people, stop worrying whether it's an aircraft that falls, whether it is a hurricane, whether it is a terrorist. Have a torch, have some batteries for your radio, be prepared. So we can look at that simple, very logical foundation of being prepared, and we can build on that. The more complex my workplace becomes, the better prepared I would be by looking at that complexity and building my EP plan on that. And it's all about eventually putting a written plan together and understanding that's not the end of the circle. I now need people to know about it, and then we exercise, we test ourselves, and from there we better, and the circle continues. SANS 1514, which is a reference from the Major Hazard Installation Regulations, has this slightly complex flow diagram that's in it, but when you have a look at it, all of those elements are in here, perhaps a little bit more wordy, things like update the emergency plan, evaluate and improve. So all of those things are in there. And my point is, we have this, and if we can bring about a legislative change, which unfortunately is what is necessary. A lot of companies would do the right thing, and Eskom's getting a lot of airtime today. I will acknowledge Eskom does that. It's not in law, but every building in Eskom is supposed to have an emergency preparedness plan. And Peter here was instrumental in helping put that in place. So there's a few companies that do the right thing, but most people say, well, where's the law? Who tells me I have to? And that's my so what slide. My hopeful end result that I'm inviting anybody in the room with interest. You obviously have FPASA's contact details now since you've registered to be here. If you have interest in participating in making sure that we get the legislative environment right, that for me is the very next step. And we'd like to partner with people as we do that. And I believe that's my last slide. I also built it so that if we were running out of time, I would save a bit of time. But I think that is my thank you slide. I'm going to hand back to Peter, and we'll give our next number of speakers a bit more time to address you. Thank you, Peter.